Welcome to the second part of JavaScripting in Google Earth Engine. Now in part one, we spent a little bit of time acquainting ourselves with what Google Earth Engine is, and we pretty much understood how to log in, how to interact a little bit with this user interface, how to create some very general foundational script within this portion here, and how to generate responses within the console. One thing we did not do was really find out anything about how to use this map down here other than it's there, and we can scroll around with it using the pan feature, which is the default feature with the mouse over the map. Beyond that, we learned about variables, we learned how to set variables, how to set things like arrays and dictionaries and things that we're going to leverage later as we go deeper into this process. I'm going to make an assumption that you've gone through part one and you understand those things, so I don't have to spend a lot of time going back over that. We're going to get right to it and now get to start to do some things with the map portion of the interface. Now, the very first thing we want to be able to do is recenter this map. By default, the map is centered on the United States, and we may want to focus our interest on some other location or even be able to zoom in to a different area. So we're going to make some script which is going to center the map and zoom things in, and then we'll go even further into that process of how we can control the map interface. So this is going to require us to understand some things about libraries or packages in JavaScripting, and there's some built-in packages which allow us to do things within this interface, and those are kind of working behind the scene, so we can actually make those manipulations. Right, so we're going to start with the very first one, and this is a Google Earth Engine package function. Okay, and it's called set center, map set center. So when I make this, make sure I'm actually on here, there we go. So when I make this map, I'm calling the library for Google Earth Engine, right? And I want it to go and bring in the map portion, okay? And I'm going to put a dot and then set center. So syntax is absolutely critical here. You see how set is a small s and C is a large C and M is a large M. If you type it any other way, it won't recognize it. It's a lot like a password. It's case sensitive, so don't forget that as you are doing your scripts. Syntax is absolutely critical. Nearly every error you're going to get in the beginning is going to be because you did not type something incorrectly. So if you're getting mistakes, go back and check those things to make sure you've typed it in as it's supposed to be. Alright, we're going to choose a location here. And it's always, in this case, we're used to giving things in latitude and longitude. Okay? Now, it doesn't like to see things that way. It wants the longitude first and then the latitude. And if you think about an XY graph, right, the X points are going to be your longitudinal points and your latitude will be your Y. So if you think as map set center X and Y, right, it's actually going to be your longitude and then your latitude, okay? Now we don't have those variables set, we can't do that. You can see I've created the function by typing mat set center, and then I've got those two parentheses. In fact, I think if we type in set center and we open up a parentheses, it wants to automatically close that, so you can see it's inserted that last parentheses for me. Now it needs data in there, and so we're going to give it a longitude. I'm going to do 14.890. for the longitude, and for the latitude I'm going to do comma 47.555. So if I was going to do, I guess one thing we should establish also, as we are referencing the Earth, okay, I'm going to put a comment here, and I'm going to say centers the map on 14.890, and this is east. Okay, if it was west of the prime meridian, like the United States, I would need a negative number at the beginning. So we reference west of the prime meridian as a negative. So here it's positive, so it is east of the prime meridian, and 47.555, and this is going to be north of the equator. So if it was south of the equator, I would need to put a negative number there, and that would designate the southern hemisphere. So because those are positive, we're east and north. Okay, so once I've done that, I can come up here and click the Run button. And you can see it is centered to be somewhere over the continent of Europe. I don't know exactly where because I'm too far out. So the next thing we need to be able to do is set in a zoom. We're just too far out to know where that center is. Okay, so I'm going to zoom this in. So I'm making a note, 7.5 times. So the map set center function looks for first the longitude, second the latitude, and lastly a zoom, in this case 7.5. Now why 7.5? Because I played around with this enough to know that that's about the right amount of zoom I want for this. Feel free to change that. In the comments I put 7.5, but again, you're free to change that however you want. Now I'm going to run this again, and you're going to see, oh, okay, I am somewhere within the country of Austria. You don't know where, because I haven't actually created a point at that. All I've done at this point is centered the map on that particular area, and I've zoomed in 7.5 times. Now, we could just have easily have done this by setting a latitude and a longitude variable. So this is just a review of part 1, but I find it handy to create these variables. So I'm going to do latitude as 47.555, put a semicolon to let it know I'm done with that, and a longitude, which I'm calling long, of 14.890. So just like before, I can tell it I want the longitude and the latitude there. I still have the zoom set to 7.5. We could just as easily make a variable for a zoom level, and you notice I did not put a space. I used an underscore. Spaces will cause things to give you problems, so don't use spaces. If you need to put a space in, use an underscore. I'm going to set that equal to our 7.5. So I'm still using that map set center function to center our map on that. And now I'm also going to set the zoom level as a variable. So now set center is going back and looking at these variables. And you need to remember that the computer is going to iterate from top to bottom. So it does line 1. It ignores line 1 because I've created that comment with those 2 forward slashes. Line 2 is empty. It goes to line 3. It sets the variable for latitude. Then line 4, it sets the variable for longitude. Skips line 5 because it's empty. Line 6, it says set the variable for zoom level equal to 7.5. And now, because I've created those variables up here, I can call them within the map set center function, okay, which expects at a minimum a longitude and a latitude, but I've also added that zoom level to give it some extra definition. Okay, so now I'm going to run it, and nothing changes. Now if I want, I can zoom out a little bit just by scrolling my mouse. Run again, and you see it does exactly what I expect it to do. So it's always best to check that to make sure that's going to do what we want. Why not make a point? Okay, let's create an actual point where this latitude and longitude is at. So we need to do this as a variable. So I'm just going to go below this set center. It's fine, we can do that. So I'm going to create a new variable, and I'm going to call it point. You don't have to call it point. You could call it whatever you want. It should make sense. We don't know exactly where this is, so I'm going to call it point. But you can name it whatever you want as long as it's within the confines of what JavaScripting would recognize as a variable name. I could write it my cool point, whatever. It could be anything. But I'm just going to use point for this. And I'm going to set that equal to EE, which stands for the Earth Engine library or package. So now it's going to go into that library. It's looking for something specific within that Earth Engine. So you can think of it kind of like a physical library, right? Not every library has the same set of books. So you might have to go to another library to find a certain book. So here we've gone to the Earth Engine library, and we are looking for the geometry book, capital G, okay? And within the geometry book, we're looking for point. Okay, so we found the geometry book, we moved to chapter point. Okay, and then we need to tell it the longitude and the latitude to make that point. Okay, and I should have put a semicolon there just for good practice. It'll still run without it. And so now, as we go past set center, we're going to create a point there. Let's see what happens as we do this. Well, it zoomed in, it did what it was supposed to, but do you actually see a physical point somewhere within the map where we wanted it? No. You have to be explicit. You have to ask the computer to do what you want. Did you ask the computer to create the point? Yes. Did you actually ask it to display the point? You did not. Okay, so we're going to make another function, or we're going to call another function. And we're going to use the map add layer. So we use map set center. Now we're going to add a layer. And in this case, we're going to add a layer that includes the point we created. Okay, so all we've done is made this call for this function. And we're going to say add the layer point. You made the point, now display the point, okay? And you may want to put some comments in here. Create a point at the longitude and latitude. Down here, we're going to add and display the point on the map, okay? Those things are so useful. Put those comments in there because what's going to happen is there might be days or a week go by before you do the next section. You're going to forget what you did, but if you've got this saved and you've got comments in there, you can go back and refer to those. Be generous with your comments, okay? It does not affect how quickly your script is going to run. So now I'm going to run this. And once I've done that, you can see a point has appeared somewhere within Austria. Not only that, but if I go over here to layers, I see layer 1, which I can turn on and off. Layer 1 refers to the point layer that I created and have added to display. Another thing that's kind of handy is I can change things over here to a satellite image, though that makes this point particularly hard to view, and we're really not concerned about the imagery at this point. So I'm going to go back just to the map, the street map. Now, where is this? Well, it's actually in the geographic center of Austria, which I calculated and displayed using a Google Earth Engine script. Okay, now that's a little bit outside of the scope of this particular video, but that does give you at least an idea of some of the power of what this Earth Engine can do. Okay, that more or less sums up how you're going to create a point and add a point and center the map. So in part 3, we'll dive a little bit deeper in how you can control the map interface.